Hey everybody, welcome back to Down and Dirty Modding. Today we're continuing with our Fractal Meshify C here, all decked out for the holidays with our NVIDIA GeForce ornament. That's pretty cool of them to send. Today I know we're going to hit a tangent. I know I said that we weren't going to deal with the hardware in these cases, these sub $80 cases, because we want to concentrate on the case. But the RAM that I picked out for this build, it just happened to be a set that I had laying around that works, is unfortunately blue and white. I had actually changed the color on these to match another build, and now I need to figure out a way to change them back so they fit with this build. So I want these to be black again. So we're going to look at how to pull the heat spreaders off your RAM and change the color on them. Now there's a big disclaimer to this. This is dangerous for your RAM. There's a good chance that you might scratch something or break something. I actually have the proof right here. This is part of that original set that I accidentally ran a screwdriver down contact and ruined a stick of RAM. So, you know, $100 later, buying a whole nother 2x4 kit, I got it going and back together. But this is definitely something where you can ruin the RAM set that you have. So be very careful and be sure that you want to get into this before you start. And also before you start, you want to go ahead and make sure you have all the stuff you're going to need. You're going to want your paint, stuff to pull the RAM sticks apart, which we'll see. And then also you want to make sure that you have some thermal adhesive. This is just adhesive tape with the thermal compound on it. You can pick them up like Performance PCs carry stuff like that. You might find some other stuff here and there. I think that's the only place I've actually bought it from. Actually, that may be from Amazon. But Performance PCs. Go there because they've got some good stuff. I've used theirs before and I do like it. So you want to make sure you have all that on hand so you don't tear all this apart and be stuck without RAM to put back into your system. So I guess what we're going to go ahead and do is just get into it. So let's start with our first stick. So to start off with our RAM, the big thing that we want to do first is to look at it and see how it's put together. A lot of these sticks, they'll all have some way of keeping both sides locked together on some level just so they line up. Mine actually has like a male-female hinge set up to where one slides into the other. But they can be kept together with clips, with just about anything really. There's really nothing to say that they can't as long as it holds it together. So you want to look and see how it goes together, and then you can start looking at how to take it apart. For these, what we're going to do is pry what ends up being the male side of the hinge out, because I've got actually some here taken apart already, because it's set up to where it hinges into it and locks. So if we pry this top piece up first, it ought to come straight out. So that's how we're going to attack these. You'll have to kind of look at yours and see the best method of getting it apart. So what we're going to do once we figure that out, we're going to figure out what side we want to take off. And then we want to look on our edges, and you want to see that there's usually some resistors or just some sort of components on the edges, and you want to make sure not to damage those. So don't pry on top of those, but you want to go in, and I've got just a plastic pry bar tool. Came with I think a kit to replace a phone battery or something. So I'm just going to slip this in there. Now my kit is going to come apart a whole lot easier than yours is because I've already taken it apart, and this is the second taping. So, but you want to pry that edge up, and then you should be able to pull your RAM stick apart. Now, you may have to fight it a lot more than what I did, but the big deal, the key to it, is to apply pressure on pulling them apart, and not necessarily yanking them apart. You want to give it pressure and let that tape give up on its own, so you're not bending against anything or having to pry really hard. So you'll see that more on the back side where the tape is actually on way better since it was a flat surface. We'll go in and we'll pry up one corner, and we're lucky with this that there's only chips on one side, so we can do a little bit more on the back as far as getting it apart. We're going to find one corner and start prying this apart and trying to get it to where I can fit my fingers in there to provide constant pressure. So if we just keep pressure on it, you can watch the tape slowly edge its way back and give up its grip. And it's just a matter of time. You want to be very gentle with this, because if you're going to break your ram stick, this is going to be where you're going to do it. If you get a little bit far and it's having some trouble, you can stick a pry bar in here for your tool and give it a little bit of a hand. It does make it a lot easier on your fingers. Come on. This one's being a bit of a pain. There it went. So now we can work that pry tool down. And I like using it a little bit more just because it keeps me from bending this ram stick a whole lot. I have yet to find a way to not bend it a little bit to get it apart, just from the pressure you're putting on it. So that is one of those things where, you know, this is dangerous because you might bend something the wrong way and break a connection somewhere. So now that we've got them apart, we can take our adhesive off. Now previously I used some adhesive with like a fabric inside of it, so it's kind of a pain to cut and tear, but it comes off nicely in one piece. So we'll take that off of both of these. I do want to say that normally stock adhesive, way tougher than this. You're going to fight it a little bit more than I did. Now that we've got that off, we're ready to start prepping it. So what we'll do is go in with some alcohol, get the rest of this adhesive off. These actually are a two-piece deal where there's a trim piece that goes over the top. So I'm going to get those apart. And just using an X-Acto knife, I can get in there. And I went back and super glued them when I put them back on. The adhesive on there the first time was a little tougher, but if you stick with it, you can get them off without breaking them. I'll do that for both of these. And after I paint everything up, I'll go back and put them on with super glue again, because apparently it's really handy. So we've got those off. Now what we can do is scratch all this stuff up with a scratch pad. I will have to take some sandpaper and get this a little smoother just because I've got bumps from where the paint peeled off. But we'll sand it down, prime it, paint it, and then we'll come back and we'll be ready to put these back together and stick them on our sticks so that they can go back into the system. So I'll do the rest of that off screen. If you want, I do have some videos where I cover painting a little more in depth. So I'll put a link, whatever YouTube's doing now, I'll put up here and you can check those out if you want a little more in depth on the painting side of it. But I think it's a little boring watching me paint stuff, so I'll just go ahead and do this off camera real quick. Okay, so we've got everything painted. Not my best job painting, but not bad. I made the mistake of painting everything gloss and then trying to go over this with a matte, and that really didn't turn out too well. It kind of ended up being a kind of a satiny gloss. I don't know. But they're black. That was the main key. If I was doing this for a competition or something, they'd look a whole lot better. But they're going to work for what we need. So we're going to start putting all this together now. Now, one thing you will notice is I did not paint the back of these. I just painted the front and the sides because anything extra here is just going to impede heat transfer, and we're never going to see this edge anyway. So didn't worry about that. Just made sure I got all the old adhesive off so I could put new on and go good with that. So we've got them ready, and now what we've got to do is put this two-part together since we took it apart to paint each separate, and that really didn't pan out very well. So we're going to go in and we're going to use some super glue because it's going to cure up really fast, and also because it's going to hold enough for what we need. These aren't, you know, super crazy, getting a ton of use or anything like that. So we're just going to put some dabs of super glue on the back of these. And I do have a piece that I could make sure I got these on the right side. It is something maybe you want to mark it down if you want them to go back exactly the way they were before. A lot of times they'll logo one side and not the other, so that'll change how it looks if you're put them on backwards or something like that. So, but I looked at an older stick that I had and figured out the best way of doing it. So we're just going to put little dabs of super glue on the back and put these right back where they came from. A little bit of pressure and that super glue ought to cure up pretty quick. I'll go ahead and do that for the rest of these. Alright, so we've got those glued back on. Now we need to apply some thermal tape on the back sides of these before we can stick them back on our ram sticks. Now, thermal tape's been something I've had trouble finding the right sizes for. And maybe I'm just not looking in the right places, but usually what I find is thinner than what I need, so I normally will just double up a couple of pieces or sometimes even use up to like four strips to get the thickness that I need to make these ram sticks sit, or the heat spreader sit right on the ram. So what I'm going to do is last time I bought a roll of thermal tape because I seem to go through it quite a bit. And we're just going to, this piece goes on the side with the chips, so I'm going to put 3 pieces of tape on there to get some thickness to it so that I get good contact on my chips. And then I'm just going to take an X-Acto knife, if I can find it. Actually, even better, a razor blade. And just cut this off where I need to cut it off. And apparently I didn't do a very good job of cutting it. Okay, now we can go in, peel this backing. And put another layer of tape on. Alright, now I'm going to leave the backing on that. I'm going to go ahead and get the other side of the heat spreader taken care of. And I'm going to put, I think, 4 sticks on the back of this if I remember right. The big thing with the back side usually is that you may notice that a lot of ram sticks don't have any chips on the back. So building up size on the front, you know, isn't that hard because you've got chips there and it's already sticking out so far. But the back side, a lot of times you'll have nothing, so really you'll have to build up quite a bit of material back here to get things to set flat. And also, I mean, if you're concerned about the heat transfer, I mean, there's really nothing on the back transferring heat. I mean, I'm sure a little bit goes that direction, but most of it's going to be on the front. So we can build up quite a bit of tape on this back side and it shouldn't hurt anything at all. I honestly don't even know what sort of performance gains you get from heat spreaders. I doubt they really do a whole lot. RAM doesn't seem to really run very hot. So maybe it's just, I think heat spreaders are a lot of looks more than anything. So I'm going to go ahead and build up, I'm going to start with 4 pieces on the back. So stick a piece down. To the backing. Now that we're ready to put it together, when we took it apart, I probably didn't mention this, but you want to pay attention to like how things are lined up, so that when you put it back together, you can put it back the same way. Now my sticks, this back piece, is this, I call it the back piece. It's the side with the logo, but it has the back of the stick with no ram on it. That's the main part of the hinge, I guess, the female side of it, and it's got a nice ridge that the ram butted up against. So I'm going to use this to place my stick in there and get it in the right spot, and then I can put that other side on after the fact. I hate tape sometimes. It's amazing stuff, but man, I am the worst at taking backing off. So there's the back side. And we'll take our ram stick. We want to make sure we get it all lined up. I want even edges on both sides. And it's pushed up against my top lip where it's supposed to sit. Now we can push that on there, just give it some pressure. And then on the top, we'll take the backing off. other side. Like I said, this one just hinges together, so we'll kind of fit that part together. Line it all up, which I didn't do very well. I always want to make sure you get it lined up really good before you start pressing it together a lot. It was a bit off. Okay, there we go. And now we just press it together. I don't think I've got very good contact with the tape, but it's probably going to be good enough, I believe, to give me a little bit of heat spreading ability. So there you go. Now we've got black ram sticks that we can throw in the case, and they won't stand out. You know, fashion-wise, they're not the most spectacular. I didn't do the greatest paint job on them, and I didn't do anything special to them. It's just rattle can paint on them, but it does knock the color down, and that's what we needed. So that's how you change your ram sticks, and or change the color on your ram sticks and on their heat spreaders. And I guess if you have any questions or comments, go ahead and leave them down in the comment section. If you like the video and want to see what's coming up next, hit the like and the subscribe. We'll be getting into more parts of this. Actually, I've got another video over another heat spreader that should be coming up shortly. I'm actually doing it at the same time. So, and that one is not ram heat spreaders. So hit the subscribe button and check that out. And I will talk to you all later. So get out there and mod something.